Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're live, guys. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, Fabio. How are you?
Great.
Not too bad. So tonight I'm together with my man Jason Bergeron,
What's up?
Mark Matthew Drokis. I'm just using all names with them. And Clark Henderson Brown III. Have I pronounced that correctly?
And you nailed it.
Oh, yes! Guys, I'm very happy that you're here tonight with me to have this, I feel somehow fragile sort of like conversation about the art, but also about society and about some of the events that happen lately and that we, I think, have the responsibility as part of the community, a very active community of artists, to have to talk about. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I launched this challenge called Together We Stand because of the death of George Floyd, which was a African American person that got killed by a policeman in the United States. And this is not a single event. This is something that in the United States keep happening over and over. At least these in Europe are the news that we get very often from overseas. And so because of the lockdown and the economical recession that it's happening, I think that what happened with George Floyd was what made, it was the proverbial last drop, if you like. And so the protests start. There was a lot of chaos happening in major cities in the United States. And I felt, as an artist, the urge to give out my platform to other artists to express their feelings and show our support to our friends overseas. Usually, the way we do this show, we do a little competition, we pick a winner, but the way the conversation has evolved over the past few weeks, I felt that it was a little bit unethical to pick a winner on this topic. And I thought, why don't we just have a conversation inspired by the art that these artists have created? And this is probably a much more inclusive way to talk about what has happened lately. Are you judges okay with that? And probably it's not right to call you judges today.
Commentators.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Analyst.
Analyst, I like that.
One of the things with this competition, I think that makes it so hard is that yes, it's a delicate topic and it's a complex topic, but it's also, as opposed to just trying to make something cool, which like most of the competitions, the goal is to make something cool and engaging and maybe emotive or emotional or whatever else. This was to actually like make some kind of statement, which I think is an incredible challenge. Like I've been kind of playing with a couple ideas that I've tried to make in response to everything going on, and it's really, really hard because it's like, I think I said this before, but if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I still can't express in 1,000 words what I'm feeling, trying to say about my reaction to it or outlook on the future. So like my hat's off to everyone. I think we have 25 or 30 or so images to look at.
Yes.
My hat's off to everyone that, like, even the people that didn't actually submit an image but worked on it, tried to, grappled with it. My hat's off just for making the effort because it's a tough one.
Let me just pick it up from where you left. I have to say, and this is something that really broke my heart over these past 2 weeks, is that some artists reached out directly to me and feared for making an artwork because they were afraid of the opinion that people might have on the whole everything that has happened. And so people were afraid to be judged. And to me, it makes me sad to think that there are people out there that they don't feel safe, even, just through the internet, because they might get criticized badly for, making something that might not align with the opinions of other people out there. Because one thing that, I was exposed to throughout these 2 weeks was how divided society has become. This is not a political issue what has happened, but people made it into a political issue. This is more of a societal issue, if that's a word. But anyway, I just want to do a very quick slideshow of all the work that was done so that people can see it. Do you guys want me to share my screen so that you can see it in real time?
We're going to talk about them anyway, right? So
yeah,
we can just show it. You don't have to do it right now, I don't think.
Okay, but do you have access to YouTube? You can see the show.
I'm watching it, yeah.
Clark, are you?
I am pulling it up right now. So.
Okay.
I mean, Clark, if you want to see it, well, if you want him to share it, it's fine. I don't care. Anyway, doesn't matter to me.
I can pass you the link.
No, let's just go. Let's just go with it.
All right.
Okay. So I'm just going to start the slideshow. Is that okay?
Go for it.
And to everyone in the chat who's always, are you going to talk about my art today? We're talking about everything that was submitted, right? That's the plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, guys, I hope everyone packed a lunch.
Mike, I didn't, though. I didn't pack. Did you pack a lunch? You got something to eat? Somebody going to bring you something? Because I don't have anything.
Maybe my wife hears enough of my rambling. She doesn't necessarily tune into my live streams. Like that's your time to say whatever you'd like, and I don't have to deal with it.
Please help me! I'm hungry. No, none of those hints are going to work today.
Yeah, and I have no snacks in my office. I don't have that secret fridge like you do in your office.
Yeah, there's just beer in that one, yeah.
Well, I mean, what were you referring to when you said lunch?
Yeah, exactly. When I'm down here, that's what is usually happening.
I have to say, like, for starting a project from scratch, from zero, without any assets and without, like, any more specific topic, I'm very impressed with the work that people have done. It's and also, like, I loved the fact that, some people just used different medias. They did not put a lot of time doing complicated 3D. They just wanted to put out their ideas, and so I think it's cool.
Yeah, their work is really good. It's especially 2 weeks from nothing. Yeah.
Wait. Let me let me clarify. I give them 2 weeks, but I got 90% of the works yesterday.
That's pretty typical, isn't it?
Yes, artists. So it's like last minute. Okay, I think we're looping already. There were not many images, only 25. And you guys, if you feel like we can go through all of them and simply have a discussion about them. What do you say?
I mean, if we're an hour in and we're on image 2, we can, revise our game plan. But I think that there's a lot of good stuff to talk about here. We've
got plenty of time, so don't worry about it. Okay.
Do we get to delete any?
No.
That's always the fun part, man. No, Somebody's gonna ask though. Somebody's gonna ask to have their image deleted.
Please delete my flush it down the toilet. Okay, so we'll start with Agnieszka Skvirut. She's been
good job.
She's been a regular of this competition.
Sorry, I'm gonna pull these up actually on my own too, so I can have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably best because I think that in some of them there are so much details that it's hard to see them.
I saw some crazy details in the newspapers that people were holding and stuff like that, like some interesting Easter eggs.
Yeah. So guys, what do you feel like, Mr. Mark Drokis?
No, just get me to get us started. I really liked this image, and the thing that I was drawn to by it was that there's like a very nice texture to the image itself. Like there's a nice, it's a little bit painterly. But this we've criticized in the past the use of text in images, and here I think it's actually really successful because you see, obviously we have a black guy playing a saxophone in an empty bar, right? And I think that it's an interesting approach to, are we listening to all the voices, right? Because it's not all negativity and it's not all necessarily about protest. Like the problem is way across the board. And I think that this one just drives home that like we value different voices differently, both on like the messaging political side, but also just like on the cultural and everything else side. Like I feel like it made me sad this room was empty because I felt like something beautiful was happening with no one there to see it.
But maybe that was also part of the point, huh?
I think it was like, and that's why I like that, or I thought that was effective.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Beautiful music and no one's listening. It makes perfect sense.
And I think that it like one of the things that I think has been really powerful, and I can't remember if it was Van Jones or Kamau Bell that was talking about it. I want to say it was Kamau Bell that was talking about, yes, like right now the white community in America is largely reaching out and saying like, what can we do to help? What can we do to help the Black and brown communities of America? Which is all good and fine, obviously. But his argument was that we'll have really started to made some progress once white people realizes that this is in their interest too. A just world is better for everybody. That's a more fun world for our kids of every color to grow up in, right? This even for white people who don't have the negative effects of racism in America, their world gets better as well if we can fix these problems, right? If it's not just about how can we help those that are being hurt, but how can we make it better for everyone, there's a chance, I think, for white people to almost care more, if that's not an insensitive way to put it.
I don't think it's an insensitive way. I just think going into this conversation, it's not so much caring more, but the image itself speaks to the actual problem. It's listening more and understanding more and being part of the conversation without blindly shutting the conversation down, because it is an uncomfortable conversation. Just like playing to an empty room could be uncomfortable as well.
Yeah, that's another good insight. That might be suppose it's supposed to be the idea is that it's uncomfortable. It's like nobody wants to listen, That's probably part of it.
I was just saying, you want to see somebody uncomfortable on stage, you should come out to one of my stand-up shows and hear me bombing, and you'll have a laugh. You'll have something to talk about on social media.
We're laughing at you, not with you.
Exactly.
I might laugh at him.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 50-50. A little bit of both.
Now, you'll just look at me and say, oh, he's so cute, he's Italian.
Bless his heart.
Bless his heart.
He's trying.
Guys, can I move forward? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce this artist's name because I know I'll do a worse job than Fabio did. But great work on this one. I really, really like this. It's one of my favorites of the group.
Well done, Agnieszka, and thanks a lot for submitting. I really appreciate it. I'm going to move forward with the next image. Let's see who is next. This is from Ale Kotsis. I hope that I pronounced it correctly. And here there are
watching
some.
so he can tell us.
There are some details, so feel free to zoom in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this one. This one was particularly interesting.
I'm looking at it up close. Is that Trump on the corner? Like supposed to be Trump standing down there?
I think it is. I'm just noticing the same thing.
That's what it looks like.
It does look like him.
And is that George Floyd on the other side of the corner next to Trump?
Yeah, I think his face
wall,
is
yes.
superimposed on it now.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's an optimistic idea right there. That Trump would actually be paying respects.
Well, I mean, that's the question. Is this paying respect? I'd argue no. I think.
Well, Ale is in the comments. Maybe he's watching. Maybe he can tell us what the idea was. Because that's sometimes the hard thing on these is to understand exactly what was meant by the symbolism and by how it was created. Like what is it trying to say?
I think these are British policemen, though.
And you got to use the models you have.
Exactly.
Or the pictures you have.
Yeah, whoever runs this competition didn't really give the artists anything to work with for this one.
I'm sorry. I apologize. It's my fault.
Yeah, those are for sure. Yeah, they have like the checker on it.
Maybe
I think that
and it says Vancouver on their shirts.
Well, kind of British.
That's all right. We understand.
We're going to look at a couple of pieces today that are, in this kind of vein of not necessarily looking at like a hopeful future, but kind of, I don't know if I want to call them like a warning or like a statement of where we're at. The idea that like, Lady Liberty is in chains, right? Presumably because of like the systemic problems that we have, that justice is not free here, and that liberty is not free. And I think that it's hard to say exactly what the message is, but the reaction that I get looking at this is, there are problems that aren't being addressed that need addressing, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like an awareness of, or a statement of something is wrong. We need fixing.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of it too. It's the idea of freedom in America is symbolized by the Statue of Liberty, but can you really, after everything that's happening all the time and continually happening, and then it takes this burning point before things like break out, it makes me wonder if part of this image has to do with the fact that the chains were maybe always there, like they just weren't visible. Because I think that's something that's amazing to me. Is some people are like, don't understand why they're happening. They're like, why is this happening now? I mean, it seems to me it should be clear that this is not coming from one incident, but from a continuous series of incidents over 200-300 years. I mean, it's like,
400.
Yeah, 400. That's right.
Oh man, time is passing.
Yeah. But I mean, I have to make a comment, not specifically about this image, but about what you said, 400 years. I've seen a lot of people talking about how they don't understand why people are complaining and being up in arms about it, because I mean the North won the Civil War, and then after that all the people got back together and everything was fine. These are usually people who are not from the United States who say this, right? Like, because they actually don't understand what the situation was in the United States after the Civil War and what happened. But if you think about the fact that you can go back, the Little Rock, I just looked this up today, the Little Rock High School was integrated forcefully in 1957. My dad was 18. My dad. Okay? I mean, it's not like you have to go back years and years and years, or multiple generations to find some problems. like major problems, not even just simple things. So I don't understand this idea that people think that America, everything was fine until just recently, and that it's something to do with, I don't know, it's framed as like a liberal problem or something, you know, political problem.
So, Jason, here's a little context to that. My grandfather's father was born a slave.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. That's just how close this story is. It's not very long at all.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's true. It completely.
Well, and like we're seeing it again now overtly, which is scary. That after the end of the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, and everyone's free. We're not going to discriminate based off of skin color or anything else. Politicians outwardly came out and said, okay, now we have all of the laws that we can keep, the black communities in their place, right? Which is, the Jim Crow era.
Guys, let me just listen. This is to me super interesting, but I would like to keep it for after when we looked at all the images, because otherwise we might steer the conversation away. And we don't give a chance for people to get a feedback on their work. But actually, I'm going to make a little note about this, because this is to me very interesting, especially what Clark just said, that his grandfather was born a slave, which is something that you hear it in a movie and doesn't have an impact, but you hear it from a living person in front of you, and you start to put things into a different perspective. At least this is what it's happening in my head right now. I apologize for interrupting you guys. Just let me get the images feedback done, and then we can get in a very deep conversation about this. Is that okay?
It's your show, man.
No, but I just,
You do what you say.
No, I just want, there are people that are coming here to get the feedback on their image. Let's serve them, and then we get into a deeper conversation about this issue.
I will just say then, as a reaction to this image itself, right? Like that's kind of the point of the image, right? Is that it's driving us to talk about these things and to acknowledge these things, and raise awareness or discussion. Either one, like that's a successful image for this competition to me, in the sense that it's causing us to talk about these things, right?
Yes,
and we can postpone the conversation, but just kudos to Ale.
Yes,
I'm gonna go with the pronunciation. Anything that's sparking conversation right now, I think is a good thing.
No, as a matter of fact, that was the aim. It's you're right. Anyway, I'm just gonna move with the next image so that we can give feedback. This one, I think it's, yes, Lisa de la Dora.
Yeah.
Do you guys see it?
Well, I'm looking at it on my own, but
yeah, I'm choosing my own adventure.
I would recommend that you do that, because there are some details if you look careful.
Right.
yeah, I mean, this one's pretty straightforward, straight to the point. I don't know. I don't have much comment on it. I believe it's very strong, and it seems there's a little bit of a rising from the ashes feeling, to it, with the rubble and the hand coming out of it, the fist. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think technically it's a really good image. I love the lighting. I love how there's a depth in there with the atmosphere. I would say the meaning or the purpose of it, like Jason said, it's straightforward. You have the fist and the Black Lives Matter. I think it's a powerful image, and I think this person did a great job.
I think they said in the comments or when they posted this image that it was like imagining a memorial to everything going on from the future. I'm not sure if I'm confusing that with something else. I will say, and this is kind of like a Jason type comment or James type comment, from a purely compositional standpoint, to go as superficial as possible, basically on this one. I think I would have liked to have seen the circle of Black Lives Matter bigger, so that the hand and matter would have a little bit more visual space in between.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I figured James was going to be on board with that comment.
But wait a second. What do you mean, like a Jason comment?
You,
Because I'm only talking about the.
I mean, I haven't been a judge for a couple of weeks, but you've been very keen on how people treat their edges recently. It's been one of this one is black and gold, so it's got your colors down.
It's not my fault that they cut it off almost, the wrong way. I'm just responding,
Jason, I'm actually preparing a challenge which has you as the main subject.
No. Come on.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Oh my God. Did you scan me when I didn't know or something?
No. But I don't know. I'll either make you a bigger friend or our friendship will be over.
No, that can't happen. Now you'd have to do something really bad.
But yeah, I like this piece, and I think that there's I think the idea of imagining a monument in the future is there's a hopefulness to that, which is to say that this is something that's remembered as a turning point, and not like a little moment where we all got really upset and then nothing really changed, right? Because like that would be as much as like, obviously decades and centuries of police brutality, particularly aimed at Black and brown communities. Like that's a tragedy in and of itself, and it will be another tragedy if a couple of years from now we're still having those problems, right? Like and so I think that there's a level of hope that this is enough of a catalyst that we're going to make change and be better moving forward as a nation, to where this stops being a problem. As hard and as long as that may take, hopefully we're on a path now to not create another tragedy, which would be for these tragedies to continue.
Let's go to the next one now.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well done,
Fabio?
Lisa.
What do we got? What's next? Sorry, I didn't look. Yeah, this is amazing. This painting, because I saw that when they posted this, they posted a little bit of a making of video.
Yeah.
And it's basically a painting. So,
And it's
hats
from
off.
Maria Vittoria Porro.
Ah, yeah, Maria. Yeah. Hello, Maria. If you're watching, she was a judge last week, a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
No,
Incredible artist.
I really, it's really great. I mean, as someone who can't paint like at all, I'm always amazed. Even I'm watching Mike sometimes just to see somebody paint, and I don't, just for fun, because I don't get to see that often enough. But yeah, it's a very powerful image as well. I have to say, I feel very weird critiquing these images. I don't know why. I just feel like because they're all trying to come, they're all bringing across so strong, principled kind of ideas, and I think that's really the whole purpose. And really, I feel like it's strange a little bit critiquing anything else, like the composition of the song. I mean, I suppose people might want to hear that kind of thing, but for me, it feels strange at the moment. I don't know. What about you guys?
I kind of agree. I'm more or less looking at the message, what their intent was, as opposed to anything else, because I think that's the most important part. With that said, I'm glad to see that they're socially distancing in this image. They all have a good amount of space. And the one guy has a face covering. That's also a really good thing. I don't want the poor lady who's next to get COVID.
That's true.
I mean, I think this one I agree I mean, I'm happy to get superficial and talk about things that I would change from an artistic level, but I think that this one is super successful. We've seen like pictures of protesters of you know, especially like some like the black kids holding these signs of "Am I next?" which are just incredibly powerful. But obviously, those are people standing in the protest lines and the like. And I think that what this one does like really successful is we have the "Am I next?" there. It's very like clear and obvious, but like the expression in her eyes and face, right? Like the posing of her lips, so to speak. It's incredibly powerful because you feel not just sadness, but like worry, maybe like a hint of anger, right? Like I think that they handled her expression incredibly effectively to where it's both like captivating and moving, and like you kind of keep looking at it because it's deeper than like a quick read, right? There's more as you look at it a bit longer, I think. Which is amazing. I mean, I think it was incredibly well pulled off. I will say that the woman's face on the left is a little blown out for my liking behind her.
Also, I also like to point out is what I love about this is the support that she's getting. If you look in the back, you know, everyone is there supporting her. It looks like there's, you know, people of different ethnicities, and they're all pointing her. They all have her back. So, I mean, that's another thing I wanted to point out.
And you see it in the hands as well.
Putting the hands on,
Which, social distancing, we don't
Great
get
job.
COVID. Clark, you're right about that.
At arm's length, though.
Yeah, but the contact has happened. All these people
they
have
need to wash their hands now.
they all have COVID, and so you know it's.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
No, but
problematic.
jokes
But
aside,
there was something that I saw that I think kind of like tangentially relates to that idea, though, which is that like right before the George Floyd video came out and the protests started, there were a lot of largely white people protesting to be able to get a haircut again. And like, so there's something that I posted a while ago, which is like, you know, white people saying, I want a haircut, right? Like the government can't tell me I can't have a haircut, next to people holding signs like, you know, young black males holding signs like, am I next? And I just want justice and everything else, which is to say that, the protests have largely been peaceful, which is amazing. And they've been wearing masks and trying to keep their distance. Yeah. But this is more important in a lot of ways than COVID. And a haircut is not.
It's also ridiculous because the people who would go and protest and say the government can't tell me what to do, they're silent on this one, or they're completely against it. And
no, they're the ones.
Do you not understand? Do you not understand that it's even worse?
I've seen
what the government's doing in this situation.
I've seen also like tweets comparison of people that said the government cannot tell me what to say, and then when these happen, the same person tweeting, you should not looting, that's what the government says, you know, something like that. And so,
exactly.
These double standards that people, you know, point the finger against us for saying that, you know, we're supporting the cause here, and people are saying that we are using negative double standards in our favor, when actually people on the other side do the same thing. I think that the solution to this problem would be to start thinking in terms of like personal political interests, and just realize that we're all humans, and you know, we're all linked one another, and there is no need to make this not a conversation, but more of a debate that it's bigger than it needs to be. You know, there is violence, and the violence needs to stop. Period. It's really simple.
Yeah.
Should I move to the next image?
Yes, let's move on.
Maria, well done.
I read a really good tweet, or you know, somebody posted it on Facebook. I think it was something along the lines that Just to the people saying all lives matter just a couple weeks ago, they were willing to sacrifice their grandmother for the economy.
Yes.
It's like it's truth.
Poor Nana. Oh, not no, no.
Nana,
Time,
take
bro.
one for the team.
And now all of a sudden, yeah,
Guys.
everybody has some hypocrisy in their life, but I mean,
This is
there's a
from
limit,
this is from Dorka.
This next image is like the perfect image to follow that conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
certainly. Wow.
This is a really great image.
I mean,
Anyone?
it sums up what we were just saying, right? Which is that like, the response to like COVID and being locked inside, like worrying about a haircut or whatever else it might be, like that's privilege, right? That like my concern with everything going on right now, it continues to be pretty superficial or whatever else. I have the luxury of that, and here we have obviously like the white lady sitting in the tube enjoying the day with the black lady underwater being held down by vines. Right, like, it's almost uncomfortable. Just like it's obviously supposed to be, but it's like bright colors. If you just like blur your eyes and look at this, you think it's going to be like a beautiful, happy, half underwater, half up above water shot, and then you look at it, and it's like, oh, like that the coloring on this adds to like the tension and uncomfortableness of it.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think the artist, I don't want to mess up your name, so I'm not going to attempt. I'm sorry. They get it. they understand that this is what people are trying to portray. All right. I saw a YouTuber. He had a line, and he was I guess playing devil's advocate, where he was saying, elevating black people up here doesn't help. We want everyone to be up here. And my argument to him and everyone else is, it's not about elevating anyone anywhere. It's about removing that barrier and allowing people to rise up and be equal.
Yeah.
And, that's what you're seeing here. There's a barrier. She's not being allowed to rise and hang out there in the sun with, I don't know, whatever that lady's name is, on the raft, getting a nice tan.
Karen.
Oh, God. Yeah, she can't hang out with Karen, I guess. I don't know. Because she's being held back. She can't breathe. Look at that. She's underwater. She can't breathe.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of symbolism in this one. I also think it's like, to continue on that, there's like an obliviousness, right, as well. That right below her is someone struggling, but she is so wrapped up in what's going on with her and her life and how everything's fine for her that she can't even recognize that there's other people struggling because she can't understand it. That's absolutely the point, I mean, I'll be the first to say that I know that I cannot understand the problems of other people. I mean, this is, I think, the first thing that people should recognize. You should never, even people who you don't agree with, that you can't understand what they are dealing with and why they're like that. And if you talk to them, you might find out why. And maybe you can help them do something. If not, okay, there's a lot of people we can't save. But I think that that's something that's so important in this image, is this obliviousness to other people's struggle. And it's a real problem.
Guys, can I ask permission to move forward and go to the next image?
yes,
Sure.
Let me see if I can.
I also want to say she's holding the woman in underwater was holding her fist up,
Yeah,
Like,
she's
still
even in her
fighting.
struggle for life, she's not like reaching for air, she's reaching for justice, so to speak, I think.
Yeah.
Is how I read that. Awesome,
Okay.
awesome work.
Yeah, Dorka is amazing.
Oh, okay, that's Dorka's actual name. Okay.
Yeah,
Dorka,
Dorka, I guess, is the nickname.
great job, Dorcas.
Dorka, I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to be honest, like this one I don't get. Like this next image. I looked at it and I was trying to figure it out.
I think Omar is watching. Maybe we can ask him what was his intention.
There's symbolism, which I understand, but like exactly what's happening or what I'm not sure. The Statue of Liberty is holding weapons. That's a good symbol of America.
If you put it on one of those quad scooters at the back of it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think though I like on an image like this, since I don't quite understand what's going on, I feel more comfortable critiquing it a little bit. And I think one of the problems is there's not really any good focus on the image. Like I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to be focused on. You know, it's quite busy and there's a lot of independent things happening. So it seems like if there was some more specific focus in one area, that would probably help to bring things together a little bit in terms of like readability.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really sure what's going on. Aside from the Statue of Liberty looking like she's about to go to war, I'm a little confused.
I mean, I agree that like compositionally there could be like more of a focus that would help, I think, understand. I mean, obviously we have like the black character wrapped in the flag, which seems to be the focus to me. Yeah. And then kind of the overarching idea that, you know, we're moving to a more and more armed and militant state, kind of being an underlying problem in America, right? We're using the military to fight off peaceful protesters at the moment, which is scary.
That's insane.
But I do think that there's this, and this might be just me kind of reading it more into this than is there. But I think when I see the Statue of Liberty holding, you know, an M4 or M16 or whatever it might be, there's kind of an analogous thing, I think, to everything that's going on with the police brutality protests with just the guns in general, right? Which is that the defense of the guns is the Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms and to protect ourselves from our government, which is laughable. They have Predator drones. You and your gun aren't going to do shit. But this the kind of like willful, it's another act of like willful ignorance, which is this belief that like well-intended armed citizens will protect all of these problems when all of the science, all of the statistics point to, okay, we're the only nation in the world that is having the mass shootings at the rate that we're having mass shootings, racially motivated or otherwise. And the obvious next steps is let's start limiting gun ownership. Let's put in some, you know, why would anyone need a 16 clip cartridge, right? Like if you don't get the deer on the first shot or two, the next 14 aren't going to help you.
It's for hunting.
Right? Like, but there's this
to get a haircut.
It's like, I need a haircut. I will defend it with my life. That right.
Cut my hair. I'll
this
shoot
idea
you.
of just ignoring the facts, right? Ignoring like the actual studies that we can look at of countries that were armed and are less armed now, and how that's related. Like look at Australia when they had a massive mass shooting, and they said that's it. You guys have ruined the right. We're taking away all the guns, and since then, no mass shootings, right? And I think that there's this same idea of like choosing not to acknowledge the systemic racism and or police brutality or all of the problems that are feeding into what it is. It seems to me like it's very clear if you sit and look at it that like we have a problem. First thing we all need to agree there's a problem, and there are at least a couple of things that we can do like right away to start trying to fix this. But if we can't all agree on that problem, we end up in this situation where it's like, what racism, right? Which is insane. So that might be reading more into it.
I want to know where all those guys are right now when there's peaceful protesters being attacked by the government. Why aren't they down there, protecting their fellow citizens from the government right now? Like, I mean,
that's on the internet calling Fabio names. That's where they are.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I guess the real point of that is that in the end, they only mean for themselves. You know, they're not talking about for people they disagree with or other people. They mean it's only for them because they're right. You know, so.
Of course. So I do want to say one more thing about this, about this particular image. You know, as I look at it, and originally I was confused. There's just so much going on, and I think that's the point. All right. Our country is in complete chaos. You know, no one knows where to start. No one knows where to look. How do we fix it? Everything is going haywire. And I think that's the point. And I think that's what I'm seeing as I look at this image.
Yes.
I like
that's
that,
a
Reed
good-
Clark.
Yeah, me too. It's a
Guys,
good one.
I'm gonna move forward because actually we just speculated that we had a lot of time, and now we're running out of time.
Yeah, I think Omar was trying to explain it. He said he tried to post a comment and he doesn't know if it got posted. It doesn't look like it. I don't see one.
No, I don't see it either. Let me see if it's hidden or something. Nope.
Oh, there you go, Omar.
But anyway, Omar, I tell you what, write the comment, maybe pass it to me on Facebook or whatnot, and then I can... No, actually, you could also leave it here, and then later I'll copy it in the comments, or later you can write it in the comments, the ones that are, you know, always there at the end of the... at the end of the stream.
Yeah.
But anyway, next image, this is from Francesco Loro. Let me make it full screen.
Yeah, this one. I mean, I know this is a serious topic we're talking about, but this one made me laugh a little bit because isn't there a movie with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence maybe? And Martin Lawrence is talking about how pool is racist because the white ball has to get the black ball down and like it's all green is the earth, and like there's some movie where they're talking about this. It made me laugh because I thought about it.
I remember that movie. Oh.
I can't remember which one it is, but this is great actually. It's a good idea. I think the symbolism of this one.
Yeah, it gets the point
I
across.
will say this though. While I enjoy the image, I always want to point out, you know, one thing suppressing or oppressing another is always not a good deal. And you know, although it's funny, having the 8 ball knock the white ball off the table, it's pretty much the exact thing that's happening now, and we wouldn't want that to happen in a reverse order.
Yes.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yes.
You know, you never want anyone to be oppressive of anyone else. But with that said, yeah, she did a great job. I think it's she. I'm sorry, but I enjoyed the image. That it was done really well.
Such
I
simple
just
and
wanted to make
powerful
sure.
idea. Huh?
Yeah, simple and powerful idea, but let's just make sure that we're being inclusive of everyone and respecting everyone's right to be a human being.
I don't know the name of the protester who was videoed, but John Oliver ended his show last week with it, and it was a black woman on the streets, very visibly angry, obviously, about everything that's going on. Talking about like you're talking about us, you know, destroying our communities. We don't own anything, and just going like incredibly eloquently, which is incredibly shocking to me, given how angry she clearly is and has every right to be.
Yes.
But incredibly eloquently, just breaking down how kind of fucked everything is, and she ends it with, you know, like kind of a message to white people, which is that you're lucky that the black communities are looking for equality and not revenge.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely right that the goal of all of the protests and the entire Black Lives Matter movement is equality. We just want what you guys have had for 200 years, right?
Yeah.
Is the message being said, or longer?
100%.
It's not that we're trying to Clark, to what you were saying, like we're not trying to get, like reparations isn't the obviously the word that I'm trying to use here, but we're not trying to like rise up and overthrow America. We're just trying to get what was essentially promised, right?
Yes.
We're trying to be part of America, That's it, trying to just be part of America. We want to be able to buy a house and go to college the same way you do, not get pulled over and beaten for a simple traffic stop or whatever the case may be. That's it.
The video of Black parents talking to their kids about how to basically not get killed or otherwise harassed by a police officer should they get stopped for speeding. And that came out, or at least the one that I saw came out like 2 or 3 years ago. But like watching that, like I was in tears. It was incredibly like tragic that they would ever have to have this conversation. And it's something that's like, it was completely off my radar that would be a discussion that Black families are having.
Yes.
Right.
Crazy to say the least.
Yeah.
Mike, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. There's like when I was a kid, we were talking about this before, but I grew up in the South. I grew up in Mississippi and then moved to Arkansas. But my family's all from Mississippi and Louisiana. So, I've experienced that place, and I have a lot of racist relatives. I mean, I admit it, like straight up racist people in my family. But all of those things, I never really realized what the problems were until later. Like at the time when I was growing up, I was in my bubble. I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't understand what was going on. I don't remember ever seeing anything, that was for me strange. But later on, I started to realize more and more, and made me sad as well, of course, because I was like, if I had recognized those things ahead of time, maybe I would have been more on the lookout for things and not just, live my life like nothing's wrong anywhere. Because honestly, that's like, I think, Clark, you said that before we started today, that if you don't say anything, you're kind of just, you're going along with it, like with what's going on. And I feel like when I look back on my life, that's kind of something I regret a little bit, is I didn't recognize that before, But we're here now, so that's the good thing.
I'm gonna move to the next picture. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
I looked it up. The movie that where Martin Lawrence is talking about that is Boomerang. It came out in 1992. It's with
right.
Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. So watch that movie. Go check it out. It's actually pretty good. I remember I used to watch that. I watched it a couple times back then. It's really funny. So which one are we on now?
I think the artist is Gabriele Feliziani.
Huh.
Yeah. So this one for me is, the symbolism is clear, but I suppose, this person has their hands on their head, and covered in the flag. But I'm again not really clear exactly what the symbolism is of the person with the flag standing in the graveyard. Despair, maybe?
There's something I very much like the color palette and the fact that the white of the flag is translucent. There's something like graphically that I really like there. But I agree with you, Jason, that as opposed to the image of a few images back where like there's so much hidden in her emotions, like this one with like, obviously you can't see the faces clearly, but like in the body language, it lacks a bit of subtlety maybe in that to understand like what emotions she's feeling. Is she covering her ears or just like starting to peek out from her eyes? Is this like does it have something to do with awareness? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I guess it's I don't know, Clark. What do you think? What do you get out of it?
I like where the image is going. I'm not quite sure exactly what's happening with the lady there. I do like the tonality of the image, how the lights and darks are playing, how it's backlit. What I would like to see if they're going to make a statement like this, as opposed to just having George Floyd there in the front, maybe just do a little Google search and add some of the other names that's been murdered on those grave sites.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny. I just thought that too. Because I was zooming in.
People did that not too many images ago, correct? Right? Where,
Yeah,
like,
he did something. Yeah.
The main name, the first name you read is George Floyd's, and then I'm not sure which ones he goes to first, but I think like
Breonna Taylor, I think.
Breonna Taylor's there, and then
we could go on
Eric
and on.
Garner,
I can't. If we wanted to list all the names, we would be here for well too long.
And we're already out of time, so.
Yeah.
We've been wildly going over time, but that's okay. I'm enjoying this, I have to say.
Well, and I think that this is one, just a quick aside. We can talk about this later too, but this is something that I hear people say, which annoys the shit out of me every time I hear it because it's so stupid, is that when you say something about if you talk about how many black people have been killed by police, whatever, etc., somebody will say, oh, you know how many white people they kill? They kill a lot more white people than black people. And it's like, look, that's because there's a lot more white people, right? I mean, like that's the only reason, is because there's a lot more white people.
And because there is Florida.
Look at the proportions. That's what you want to look at, not at how many, the number, you know? It's really...
I also would like to point out, they're not killing him in traffic stops because there's a light. They're killing them because they're in shootouts or he's chasing them with a machete or crazy things. It's so funny. I used to watch Cops or these TV shows where they're like pulling the crazy meth addict out the house and he's like insane. He has an axe. He's chasing the police.
That's exactly what I was
thinking. And they pull the black guy for walking down the street and he's like face down on the sidewalk. They're all kicking him. There's dogs biting him. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't they treat the crazy meth guy the same way?
There is a Facebook page. There is a Facebook page that it's something like it's called Today in Florida or something with Florida. And
Florida Man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is it Florida Man?
I don't know, but Florida Man is a thing. Yeah.
But anyway, it's that is borderline hilarious because those characters are straight out of a Family Guy, Rick and Morty sort of like cartoon, and they're real.
Yeah, unfortunately, they are real. But I say, great job. Would love to see it probably pulled out a little bit more. The other names on the headstones and the white behind the characters a little, maybe could be toned back a little.
Yeah, it's a little blown out.
But those are just some technical things that I see.
Because I think the idea of having the other names, I think that's what the cemetery is supposed to symbolize. But I think that the message would get there much stronger if there were names written on it. Right? Even if they're not legible, you would see names moving backwards.
But those are nitpicks for me. This is a really good looking image.
Yeah, I would like to add as well, like with the name thing, that if it's sort of one of those things. If you took George Floyd off of the tombstone and you just saw this image, and perhaps at this time, right at this moment, we would understand what it's about, but otherwise we wouldn't understand what it's about. You know, like in 10 years, if you look at this image, didn't have his name on there, you'd be like, what is this supposed to be meaning? You know, what's the meaning of it? And I think that's a little bit problematic because then it's like there's nothing real specific about the image that you can read it without the text, without knowing, you know what I mean? What I mean is it almost makes having the other names would be helpful in that sense, that it's really not just about this one singular event that happened, but a culmination of events over years and years that are leading to that point.
Yeah, I
think
don't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
And now we're just gonna sit in silence. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think he hit the nail on the head. Just having those names would make it relevant and understandable, more relatable in the future.
I mean, I think that there are a lot of ways that you could do that, right? Like, having like, the solidarity fist anywhere in this, right, would give it context. And her pose and like she's rendered not as a statue, kind of like she doesn't look like a person draped in the flag. I don't know if she's supposed to be a statue or a mannequin or whatever else. Like having her as a black woman would say something different, right? That she's wrapped in this shredded American flag or this deteriorating, disintegrating flag. Would say something different as well. So I don't think that you necessarily, I agree that names would be better, but I think that there's a lot of things that could give it just a little bit more context.
I agree.
Fabio has decided to pay more attention.
Move on.
No. It's just that I want you know, guys, the idea of having you guys talking about this is because myself, I can be concerned from an emotional point of view. You are 3 American people that have been living in America, and you have a direct experience with everything that is happening. I rather have you talking and tell me how you feel when you see this stuff, because you can relate to this a lot better from a personal experience point of view. This is the next picture. It's from Gabriele Feliziani. I think that's the second entry that he made.
He did too. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Nobody did like 5 images into 2 weeks. Like some guys were doing 3 images in a week. I mean, come on, somebody, 5 images. I want to see 5, 6 images.
Paul, I think he made 3.
Guys are slackers.
Really, Paul? Only 3 images? You had 2 weeks. Come on, man.
This one is interesting.
Yeah. I'm looking at the some of the background details.
I'll get my first read of this image because I really like this image. The black and white kids holding hands, like we've seen like a lot of images like that. There's a part of me that's like almost cliched a little bit to be a little like judgmental on it, but the thing that I really like about this image is that they're in, that's the Warzone kit from Kitbash 3D that they're using, I believe, right? Like, but inside of it, you have a black and white kid holding hands. On the right, the bedroom is bright colors. It actually looks like a pretty cool bedroom to have as a kid to me. And like the feeling that I got from this was that as terrible as things are at the moment within our country, and like the country being destroyed metaphorically in some ways, you could say, there's an idea that something good will come from this. Is how I kind of interpret it.
Or that maybe the 2 worlds are so close that it's like you're stepping from one to another in a matter of like taking a small step, right?
I'm not sure I fully understand that one.
Not like that, like you have the room on the other side, because you see there is also like painting on the wall, and so it almost feels like that is a nice room of a person that lives in good conditions, and then just like 20 centimeters away there is this world of destruction.
Ah.
Well, that's interesting. That's not how I read it when I first saw it.
I'm just speculating at this point.
Yeah.
I actually didn't understand this one either, honestly. Because for me, that's the thing. When I look at it, I see that everything's kind of destroyed. Even the room on the right doesn't look like super... there's still like destruction in the background you can see and everything else. And so then I started to think, so what is this supposed to be about? Because, like at first, when I first saw it, I was thinking it was going to be about 2 worlds. Like that's, the black and white children holding hands. Like I've seen images like this before, where you have two connected, but on one side everything's fine, and on the other side it's all destruction.
Yes.
But these kids are all, for me, we're all in an environment of destruction, and I'm not quite sure what the point is exactly for that, you know.
Yes.
So here's my thought about this particular image. All right, it took me a while, and I could be totally wrong, but when you look at this, children are typically innocent, and racism and that sort of thing is learned or taught over time. And what I'm seeing is a completely destroyed world where, you know, people have been fighting, they've totally destroyed it, and yet these two innocent children are here, and race between them two is not an issue. It's not even an afterthought. You know, they're just trying to make it through this war zone and the best they can. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing from this particular image. Like I said, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm gathering.
Guys, I'm gonna move to
I don't
the
think
next
Gabriella
one.
is here.
I'm gonna move to the
explain.
next one because we still have quite a bit of images to
Yeah.
go through.
We should probably streamline our comments a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit.
totally.
No, I mean, I don't care. I mean, we can talk a long time. It's just,
This is
are we
an
trying to
image-
get under a certain time limit, or?
the 2 hours goal would be fantastic, but of course, you know, I cannot.
Let's see if we can do it.
This is from Giuseppe La Greca.
Yeah, that's also an interesting one.
There is a lot going on in such a simple image.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is
I'm just,
the...
I'm sorry being quiet. I'm like zooming in on it and checking it out.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I like this. All the symbolism inside.
I would really like to be able to read it the way that the artist wanted. Is Giuseppe here? Giuseppe, if you're
But
here.
the beauty, I think it's good though that we're interpreting these like on our own, because it seems that, you know, that Clark had a really good read on the last one that I wouldn't even have thought about, and some of the others, you know, we each have our own sort of ideas of what we see, and I mean it's almost like Rorschach tests in a way, you know,
Yeah.
like what do you see? What do
Yeah.
you see? So in a way, maybe it's good not to be have the meaning like described to us at first. It's good to know what they wanted to know, but at first, it's like really looking at a piece of art.
Well,
But
I think
Gabriella-
it's all art, and I think it's subjective, and I think they've all done an amazing job. This particular image, I think, technically, you know, in terms of lighting and composition, I think it's done very well. As far as the symbolism, wow, he's really chalked a lot in he's put a lot in there. So, I mean, I'm not even sure exactly where to start with the symbolism, to be honest with you. But the image overall, I think, is well put together.
So let me try. Okay, so we see this is a glass hour, right?
Hourglass, yes.
Hourglass. Sorry. And there is like an American flag that cannot go through, possibly because of the handcuffs.
Yeah, I think the handcuffs are sort of, you know, the symbolism of law enforcement, but also it's kind of like because of the top of the hourglass is the head, that's the neck, right? And he's being strangled
Exactly.
by law
That's what I'm
enforcement.
saying there.
The flag, yeah, I was trying to figure that out too, like something about time. The
Yeah.
flag can't pass. I don't know. I couldn't quite figure out, but I still think it's a pretty interesting idea overall.
Well, one of the thing that I kind of took from it, like my first read about what it's about, without actually trying to say like this specific message, was that we have the handcuffs, which are choking the neck, which is, you know, which led the mannequin to die inside of the story of the image. And I think, what we were talking about before, and we may get back to again later, which is this idea that since the Civil War, when everyone was made equal, the system has used law, not just law enforcement, but also codified law to continue systemic racism, right? Like you can look at how Clark, you were sharing a story before we started, which I hope you don't mind me quickly resharing, which is that in North Carolina, even as late as 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you were sent home from voting booths to go get further documentation of who you were before you could vote, even though you had a driver's license with you.
Oh yeah, and a voter registration card. Yeah, both of them.
Those types of laws of like, no, you need X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff is just, even though it's quote unquote applied to the entire population, it's aimed specifically to suppress minority and poor voting, right? Gerrymandering is doing the same thing, which is not to restrict your ability to vote, but the ability of your vote to actually matter. And so these are all built into our system to continue what racism and pre civil rights movement and pre Civil War was obviously out in the open, and now it's all become systemic and codified in the laws that people don't, unless they choose to understand, don't notice maybe. But it's all built into the actual laws. Someone said, those of us that are saying the system is broken in America are wrong. The system's functioning exactly as it was intended to function.
The people and moral standards of our legislators, that's what's broken. I'm sorry, I hate to say that. People are comfortable with what they have, and they don't want it to go away. And and it's going to be up to everyone who are on the ground in these voting booths to make it known that your lack of moral fortitude is not acceptable, and we need to vote them out and try and get the right person in there. Now, as far as how our political system works, that's a completely different conversation for a completely separate time. As far as term limits and other things, but as of right now, these legislators who are making these laws and get their pockets lined to keep these laws in place, that's the problem, not the system.
Yeah, I think another problem is you're spot on with that. That's exactly the beginning of where the problem comes from. But also the like the prosecutors' offices around the country as well. The way that works, the way that they decide to prosecute cases or not, the plea bargain stuff that they do, to get people to cop to certain things, even if they didn't do it. This is completely horrendous, like the way it's done right now. I mean, like you said, I mean, this is like, that could be like a weekly show, right? We could do a weekly show just about that. So a weekly 2-hour show.
I've watched this movie called 13, it's about the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
And basically what the 13th Amendment says about slavery, that slavery is abolished through the unification of the United States, but a man can only be enslaved when he becomes imprisoned as a punishment. And so this movie basically explains the whole juridical system, how it became a criminal, what do you call it? Like, it's a system that it's designed to make people criminal. And I can give you a very simple example. In the United States, drug use was criminalized. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why are you so interested in this topic and why do you take it so personal? What a lot of people don't understand is that the United States have always set the example worldwide for how to do basically anything, right? The United States were basically the example. And so a lot of countries, when they started to deal with the problem of drugs, they also criminalized drugs because they saw that's how the United States does it. Over the past 20 years, a lot of countries in Europe, mainly in Western Europe, they have decriminalized drugs because they saw that it made no sense to make people that were using drugs criminals. And so countries like Portugal, I think also Spain, Austria, they have decriminalized, meaning that of course you can still get in trouble if you get caught with it, but those who are using it, they are not put in jail as criminals. They get basically treated as patients that have a medical condition. And this has seen like the drop in crime in Europe being so steep because basically we stopped punishing people for something that was not to be considered a crime. Now in the United States, apparently this plays a very it gives a very good opportunity to police to arrest people of colors and minorities, because when there is poverty, one of the things that people do to run away from their reality is to abuse drugs. And so, it's a very interesting documentary that talks about this problem, and a lot of people say to me, you should not get your information from TV and whatnot, but I still think that there is a lot of valuable information that can help people thinking about this issue with their own head. I don't think
I would like to know where those people are getting their information, though. Like, I mean, if somebody tells me not to get my information from a specific source, they should give me a source where I should get the information, and then I can see where they're getting their information. And that, this is how I would prefer to do things. But I totally understand what you were saying, Fabio. I mean, there's a lot of information about that out there. You don't have to get that just from that show. I mean, there's a lot of info out there.
The thing is that I watched that show, and then I did a little bit of like looking up on the internet, because obviously that's where you get most information nowadays. There is just so much, man. It's like this, Alice rabbit hole. When you start to read, you just get mad, and in my case, I feel like my blood is boiling because, again, America has always been the standard for the Western world, and we have looked up to the United States for a very long time. I'm talking about all the at least Europe, and like accepting such oppression, accepting such disparity in rights, it just makes the life of everybody worse. Because once we start to accept that racism is okay because minority makes crimes and that's how you deal with it, it's a question of like days that this becomes the standard also in your own country. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fabio, we talked about this the other day
I know.
privately, and I remember hearing this from people here in Europe sometimes, about America. Some people are really in love with America. I think that's changed a lot since I've been here, especially in the last 15 years or whatever, in terms of, how people view America. But of course, in Austria after the war, and in a lot of European countries after the war, Americans were viewed favorably. In Austria especially because, Austria is very close to being Russian. So, I mean, like and then like what happened after the war and so on. But for me, like looking back, I was always surprised by that. Like what is so, it seems like for me that America was embodied by this idea that you could do anything you wanted, you could make lots of money, you could be successful and so on like this. And I knew from coming from there that this is not really true. I mean, it's not like that was really a true thing. That's like the myth of America. And so to hear people talk about it like it was the absolute best thing, ever for them, I was never really quite understanding that. But that's often the case when you are from a different place. I mean, you have to experience things yourself to understand, I guess.
Guys, I hate
really
to
the
break
most
it to you,
important thing.
but we haven't been going through half of the images. I'm looking at my screen right now and I'm like, oh shit. What do you think we do
Heavy
we do?
topic.
What do you think we do a little sprint through all of the
Yeah.
images? We finish them up, and at least we try by the end of these 2 hours to give some feedback to the artists that made the work. What do you say?
Sure.
Do it.
Let's go.
So our friend Hector Suriel is been very supportive of all these challenges that we have done. He's participated in many. He was probably the first one to finish an artwork for this challenge, and so props to you, Hector, for being such a active member of this community. What do you guys say about this image?
I like the image. I think it's a little bright. It's a little bit blown out from an artistic standpoint. I like the image. Obviously, the idea of together we stand and divided we fall is very appropriate right now. But I think that kind of similar to the grave image, I think it'd be nice if we had a little bit of context about, like, I forget the name of, the famous statue of the American troops raising the American
Iwo
flag.
Jima.
Iwo
Iwo
Jima.
Jima.
Yes, that's right. I'm biased. I'm a Marine, so
Yeah, exactly.
hoorah. He won. No.
But like, there's nothing that says that it's specifically speaking to what's going on right now.
I guess that the idea is that probably this is the America that we want to remember or think of,
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to ask Clark about this because he was in the Marines. But for me, just I'll say what I think first, and then I want to ask you about that. If you think what I'm saying is on base. For me, this doesn't really work because if you go back at the time that this happened, like World War II and what was going on there, things were much worse even then for Black people in America. And it seems like for me that this, while it's trying to talk about coming together and being together, what was happening then was worse than now. I mean, somehow I feel like what was happening in America at that time.
But that's the thing, I think that... oh, sorry, Clark.
Yeah, Clark, I want to know what you think about that.
So, you're kind of right. In the country itself, America, one thing was happening. However, the Marine Corps was the first armed force to integrate. When I went to boot camp, there was no such thing as white or Black Marines. We were all green. All right. And you can watch Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. And that's pretty much how boot camp was, and it's probably been like that for a very long time. And I've actually been on tour with people who were probably racist, but would still have my back at any point. They wouldn't just leave me hanging out there. So I could say that's one thing about the Marine Corps that I did love is when, everyone else was racist, I had my brothers at my back. They had my back, period. So yeah, together we stand, with these Marines raising this flag on Iwo Jima. Yeah, that was the America everyone wanted to see.
Yeah.
Although that's not the America that existed. Because when these people came home, these Marines came home, they were treated like, you know how they were treated. So
yeah.
But that's
the thing.
Good.
I mean, thank you.
That's what I wanted to add is that looking at it from behind or from outside rather, what we have learned outside of the United States is that racism finished with the United States becoming the United States, and so I think that unless you were in the United States, you did not know what was actually happening, and so a lot of people in school, they were reading history books where the teacher was saying, yeah, there was racism before, but then the Civil War happened and people got together and that was the happy ending for everything, but that is not what actually happened.
I mean, that's kind of like the problem that you guys were just talking about, right? Which is that this idea of America being the land of the free and there not being, racism is a problem and all of these other things, that is the American myth. That's the lip service. We've been paying lip service to that for, at least back to the Civil War, if not before, for depending on the topic you're talking about. And one of the reasons that I don't fully agree with Jason, your call that this is hearkening back to a time when things were worse, is that it's time we lived up to all of those things, right? It's not that the things that we were saying were bad. It's that the things that we were actually doing weren't the things that we were saying.
That's true. That's still true. Let's say up until Trump became president, people were still saying things about, America is about this, but doing other things. Now I think Trump's pretty. I mean, he does believe what. Yeah,
saying it straight up.
He acts
everyone voting would be bad for him, so he doesn't want everyone to vote. He literally said that. He literally said that he doesn't want everyone to vote.
And I guess that's why there's people who like him. That's why they like him. But I guess we need to move on. I don't want it to be.
We're supposed to be sprinting. We're not sprinting right now.
Guys, I ask you to open this image on your own computer because there are quite a few details, and I would like you to, zoom in and look at them.
Yeah, I have already done this at this image because I noticed all the things that was going on here. I mean, that's okay. The first really strong symbolism of the black woman helping this neo-Nazi. Even though
this is Dylan Roof, right?
This is
what? No, it isn't. I mean, it sort of is. If you read the newspaper, they use the name of Derek Chauvin, like that he's the one who perpetrated a massacre in a church. It's like a made-up story, but using the other story of Dylan now. But also, if you look in it's quite interesting, the details. If you look in the reflection on the monitor behind the bed, the woman has a halo.
That's my favorite part of the image.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the other thing is that the mayor of this town has allowed people to be blinded if they have committed really horrendous crimes, and that's why he's wearing the band around his eyes. At least that's what I understand.
Oh wow! I did not zoom in that far to actually read the news article.
It's quite small, but it says.
Wow, this image is amazing.
Yeah, Jaime's been doing a lot of cool stuff for the competitions. I believe he's watching right now.
Yeah.
As well. So good job, Jaime. It's a good one.
Unbelievable.
I mean, the other thing that I really reacted to in this image, right, is you have the guy with the lightning the SS bolts, right, from Nazis. He has the actual swastika. I'm not sure what the Celtic cross is in reference to as far as white supremacy goes.
I think it's supposed to be like a German cross, but it's not. It's the different symbol. The Iron Cross. Sorry.
But you have this clearly racist mass murderer sitting in the bed, and then you have the black nurse or doctor taking care of him still, and that reminded me of the thing we were talking about before with the black protester that went on that amazing rant. Which is that this idea that the black community has not upright revolted, but continued to build America in a lot of ways, despite everything that's been going on, I think comes through in this image, right? That even though, if I was that nurse, I would probably be tempted to, just beat the shit out of this guy further, or certainly not take care of him. And that she is just incredibly emotional, I thought, when I saw this image.
And this is something I'm going to throw in there. the thought or premise, and I'm not sure if he actually realized this, maybe he did or not, that Black people have been supporting and building this country. It's been going on ever since slavery. I mean, even back to when the slaves would take care of the slave owners' children and raise them. All right. Think of the mammy or whatever you want to call it. But that's part of our culture and history. We've been taking care of the racist white people who do us harm.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing that's been happening, and this image is portraying that in a modern setting.
Did you see the angel's wings reflecting?
Yeah, he wrote
Oh
that.
yeah, that's awesome. Right there, next to the halo and everything. She's
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I think it also goes along with what you said earlier, Clark, about the fact that it's Black people aren't wanting to overthrow anybody. They want to be just normal part of American society, just like everyone else. And I think that image is saying this too. It's like there's nothing out of the ordinary in this. This is what the job is. This is the job. This is what she's supposed to do. So she does this. She does her job.
Guys, I'm gonna go
It's
to the
amazing,
next
huh?
image.
Yeah. Yeah.
Highly well done, bud.
So this one is from Marco Sartoretto.
I wasn't sure how to react to this one. I'd be curious what you guys thought.
I think that, you know, like I think the message it's very powerful. Like you know, now I'm talking from a technical point of view. I just wish that I don't know, I think that the choice of clothes was probably not appropriate for the context. That maybe she should have been dressed more as a protester, and then during the protest she would just approach the policeman and hug him, just to say, you know, don't hit me, don't hurt me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was not the intention.
It seems to me it's just the idea that love wins, and it's not the,
Yeah.
you know, violence is not the answer, and so on.
I agree.
I mean, I sometimes think that that's an unfortunate aspect of this whole situation, is that at what point do you say that perhaps not violence, but perhaps some kind of destruction is necessary to show people how important this is?
Yeah.
Because there has been protests for many, many years, and things are still kind of the same, right? So what do you have to do to get people's attention? I mean, where is the line you have to cross to get people's attention, that they understand that something bad has been going on for such a long time? I don't know. I just sometimes I'm a little bit pessimistic that always being nonviolent is going to change anything, because that's just, unfortunately, in the world we live in, maybe not the case. I know that's like probably maybe going somewhere we don't want to go, but
No, but I
that's just how
understand.
I
I
feel about
understand.
it.
You know, a lot of people, like a lot of influential people, a lot of people with a voice, actors, you know, singers. I've heard them saying things like, you know, that they justify the looting not because of the act of looting, but because of the reaction of like to the oppression. You know, like looting. It's of course bad, but how are we to judge when the institutions that we're supposed to be trusting have pushed us over the edge, right? Then you get a lawless state. And so it's not the case of like pointing fingers and say, yeah, but the looting is bad. It's a question of like pointing the finger and say, you guys, government, have created the conditions for the looting to happen. Don't try to turn it around and spin it around and make it look like people are bad and the looting is bad and the looting should not be happening. If there was no killing of that person, the protests would have not started, the looting would have not started. Sometimes, really, the solution is the most basic one. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, you got in a system that's built on capitalism. Where do you hit people that hurts the most?
Yeah,
Money,
exactly.
property damage. So the point is kind of like, well, if you on one hand don't seem to mind too much that someone gets killed, okay, what can I do? What can I do?
Yes.
In what system is that okay if nobody's going to react to that? What are you going to react to? I mean, just protesting is not enough anymore. Maybe. I'm not saying that lawlessness and looting and violence is like necessarily the way to do it, but I mean, I do understand it. Like, how do you get people's attention?
All right. Think of it this way, especially if you have children. All right. When you don't pay attention to your children and they want attention, eventually they're going to throw a tantrum. They're going to break something. They're going to cry. They're going to do the things to get your attention so that way you can fix whatever is ailing them. And that's what this is. And to Jason's point, we're in a capitalistic society, and that tantrum was to hit a pocketbook, which would make people stop and look. What we have to do is resist the call to start labeling protesters as criminals, and be able to differentiate between, what's the best way to deal with it and what obviously is not the best way to deal with it, military. All right, so yeah, that's it.
Because the
so
thing is,
I'm sorry. I'm gonna help you out, Fabio. Who's
No.
next?
I think that the issue is also relative, because now we look at these people as protesters. But say that these guys really do start a positive change. One day they're going to be looked at as heroes.
Yeah.
No matter what the actions were, the looting as a crime will be forgotten. Why? Because the result will be a fairer, juster society. Not because of the looting, because the looting it's not creating that, but it's because of the damage. And again, nobody here is supporting that, or we're not saying that it's a good thing. The question that I'm asking people is, what do you expect? What do you expect?
The same thing that they've gotten for the last, 100 or so years, for everyone to just forget about it and walk away. Yeah. That's what they expect.
That's the expectation.
All right, so.
Guys, let's move forward.
Don't resist. Do not resist.
Let's move forward, because we still have a buttloads of images.
Okay, should we do 2 minutes? 2 minutes per image. Let's do it.
All right.
Now Mazen will be like, wow, I waited 2 hours and then you want to talk 2 minutes about my image, you bastard.
Sorry, Mark.
Okay, we on the next one? Mazen or what?
Yes, Mazen Samir.
Am I?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting to juxtapose directly the symbol of justice with a protester, and I think it is also apt in a way.
Yeah, I think the message is good. The colors are throwing me off, but I think the message itself is it's good. You have justice pointing the sword at the person here, and the scales are broken. That's a very powerful symbol, but it's just something about the colors in this it's throwing me off.
It's very horror, right?
Right.
With just red lighting. I feel like either if it was a more neutral color overall, or if it was there was red and blue lighting, which would then be suggesting police lights or emergency lights. but
Right.
just red feels zombie apocalypse ish. But there is an interesting thing, right? That Lady Justice and Justice is Blind, quote unquote, has broken scales, but does she know that they're broken? Right? Is she's blind?
The justice
Yeah.
is broken.
Good point.
And she's holding the sword towards the protester, like not in the air like it's usually depicted, or to down.
Yeah.
She's actually, it's pointed like in a aggressive way to the person, or at least in a defensive position. Like.
Certainly.
So next.
The 2 minutes are over.
Sorry.
Sorry.
But look at the bright side. There is no flushing this time.
we have without knowing it very much been prejudiced towards people whose names start with a letter at the beginning of the alphabet.
Yes, true. All right, guys, what about this image? And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an Austrian policeman.
Is it? Why you say it's Austrian policeman?
No, he hasn't. Do Austrian police have guns?
Yes, they do. I don't know. It says police. It doesn't say Polizei on the back. So,
but
at the end of the day, you use whatever 3D model you can find.
The uniform reminds me.
I'm fine with that. Just do what you can. It's all about the symbolism.
I'm googling it now.
I'm always.
No, it's not. Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure. You guys can correct me if I think I'm wrong, but I'm not sure it's like a positive way to when people are portraying the police as like part of the KKK, and that's what this is doing, right?
That's what I'm saying too. I was going to ask you, did you see the shadow? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
I feel like that is taking things too far in some way. Now,
I agree.
The police have been put into a position where, like one of the things I see about defund the police and these kind of things is that actually many people are taking that the wrong way. They see it as that they want people to get rid of the police. But the reality is what people are saying is that why don't we have police for doing the job that they're supposed to do and not solving all of the problems that we have, and the police has been built to solve specific problems, but is being asked to do so many other things that they're not equipped for. So just to label police as like a racist organization that is like that their full job is like to beat down people, I just don't know if that's really fair.
No,
there's a lot of minorities who are police men and women as well. Yeah. So I would be curious about that, like how they felt about this kind of depiction. Yeah,
I agree with you, Jason, because police aren't therapists. They're not medical officials. They're not all of these things that we want them to be whenever we call them out. And we need to actually remember that the police can't fix everything. And they all certainly aren't racist. And this also goes back to the black ball knocking the white ball off the table. It's just the same thing, Yeah. What we want to do is promote a healthy dialogue and try and move from there. With that said, technically it's a decent issue, but I would just try and steer clear of labeling people. And that's what starts a lot of this, It's just labeling people whatever you want to label them because it's us against them.
Yes.
I think even there's another kind of question that I had in this image, which is that even if we ignore the KKK reference, the pointed hood reference in the shadow, and just pretended for a second that was just a straight shadow, we still have there's the underlying message is that even with the protests and the awareness, right, we have the I Can't Breathe and Black Lives Matter and the fist, nothing's changed. Like the police officer is still looming over the black officer, which, I mean, we've seen some small things even start to change already. There's like little kind of inklings of like, oh, they upped, from third-degree murder, which is like an accident. The Chauvin's been gone up to second degree, and the rest of the officers have been charged as a result of the public outcry and the protest. There's a conversation about police reform, even the awareness of how much police are asked to do is something that I think most of us didn't even think of up until this point. So we're starting to see like little things already as quickly as it's been start to change. And then the overall read, even without the shadow, to me is still like, even with the protest, nothing's changed in this image. So I'm not sure what the comment is about as what it's trying to say.
Guys, do you mind if I keep pushing because we still have a bunch of images to go? And
Yes, push.
Go for it. The next one is like the most positive one there is.
yeah,
I
this
think.
one made me really
Isn't it?
smile.
It's I like it. It's super colorful, and you feel like there's togetherness in this image, and I like it because it seems different than most of the images we've seen so far in that sense that it's quite optimistic, and also well done. I really like it. I really think it looks very.
It's a painting.
It's a very nice mix. It's like a mix between 3D in the background and some painting in the front. It's very nice.
Anyone?
I agree. I love the painterly qualities about it, and how bright it is. That's wonderful. And unfortunately, the architect in me is the straight lines are killing me. I just want the scaffolding to be vertical.
You need to tilt shift camera on this baby. Get the
Other
box.
than that, yeah, I'm really pleased with that image.
But it does look more realistic because that's how you will take a picture with your phone,
Yeah.
Right.
But I know it's making my eyes itch. I'm like, just straighten those curves.
I mean, one of the things, and I'm not sure quite what it means, but what something I really like in this is I like it's looking for positivity in everything that's going on right now, which I like. But you can see looking like through the crowd that like there's different races represented, but all of the hands have been colored blue.
There may be gloves.
Not all of them. But yeah, some of them. There's people. These look like people who are dressed in like virus.
Wait, is it only the people?
Suits.
Oh, wait, you're right. Never mind. I was reading that completely differently. Yes, the people in full-on COVID Devo gear are
Exactly,
are the ones blue.
That's what that is. Okay.
That's what it looks like.
At a glance, I thought all of the hands had been painted blue.
Together we stand with COVID.
Despite all of the races, we're all coming together in this one movement, united.
And the image is from Nicolò Piana. I don't know if I mentioned the name. Also on the Nancy Moreno is the image before. Yes. Sorry for...
So I would suggest let's move on so we can check out the next three from Paul.
Yes. Let's give Paul Lupon a forfeit feedback based on all three images.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good job, Paul. Next.
Once again, you killed it. All right.
Now, he's just so prolific,
It's amazing to me too, like that he has done. So two of them are a little bit similar style, but then like having this second one, which is completely different style. I'm trying to figure out who this grandma is. She's like dragging Trump out by his hair.
He even wrote me and he was like, "Oh, I'm trying to get this done in 3D," and I was like, "Are you crazy? It's like this is beautiful."
Yeah, I think the first one though he really nailed it with this one because
this is beautiful.
It's quite emotional and it's also having to do with justice.
Yeah. That the justice has failed, basically.
Lost its way
a
little bit, I think, and the girl is trying to like help restore justice, like in a way.
Maybe the girl, I don't know if the girl is removing the bandage from the eyes, or if
That's what it
she's
looks
trying.
like. She's removing the blindfold. Yeah, that's what I was seeing. That the little girl's removing the blindfold so
Paul,
that Justice can see exactly what's happening. And of course, she's thrown her scales and sword down, and she's distraught at what's been happening. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if that's
I don't
right
know
or
if
not.
you guys have seen the breakdown of this image that Paul has made.
Yeah, did
No, I'm not.
So
from some
basically,
photographs, I think, of his wife and his
his kid.
child.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
It's funny, Clark, that you say that, because I actually see it could be the other way, that justice is broken, meaning the scales are thrown down. It wasn't wearing its cloth anymore, because the idea of justice is blind is that everybody should be treated equally, and that the girl is actually giving back the blindfold to like restore the idea that justice should be equal and should not be looking at it shouldn't matter who it is, but that everything should be
Paul
equal.
just wrote that this is the what it did. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because those are two completely like opposite readings as to what's happening, but they're both suggesting the same thing.
Yeah,
which is amazing. And I don't know if Paul intended that at all, but like the fact that you can read it completely opposite ways but still get the same like core message is kind of mind-blowingly awesome as far as a statement goes.
Yeah, I think Paul, you did a great job with this.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of my favorite ones from all of them.
The color's beautiful. I love that the blindfold is the only thing that's actually like white in the image. Right, the use of like how the child's like back shadow falls into the shadows in the back, I think is gorgeous. I think it was really well executed. So I wish Fabio, the sword had a little bit more thickness.
Let's move to the next one so we can see the differences, like what he's done. Because the next one is like amazing too. It's cartoon. It's like, and also almost like political cartoon. It is. It's a political cartoon, isn't it?
It's so funny.
It's like Granny's about to take Trump out back and give him a whipping,
Oh, yeah. Well, Jason, you know about breaking a switch. He's about to catch a
man.
And for those who don't know, it's a little tree limb that your grandmother would, catch the back of your legs with when you weren't behaving.
Oh, man, my grandma told me one time, she was like, I was fighting with my sister. We were there at her house by herself, me and my sister. And she was like, you make you go out there and get your switch. I was gonna have to go get it myself. Like I was gonna have to take it and bring it back, and then she's gonna whip me with it.
Oh yeah, I've had to make that walk.
Guys, I'm just gonna move to the next image from Paul.
Okay.
He made 3 altogether. And this looks to me like a small collage photo bashing in Photoshop. I don't know, the image that was sent to me, it's quite grainy. I don't know if he made a better quality one.
It is a bit grainy, but... No, it is a bit grainy, but I think
I think the grain works.
It's fine, like, because it's the idea. He did a making of this one too, I think.
I haven't seen it. I wasn't that much on social media this past 2 weeks.
I'm not as clear about this one, like what it's supposed to mean. I mean, I know what the Statue of Liberty means and like all that, and the immigrants coming with the boats, coming with to the United States. It looks like it's being built, obviously, in this image. But this is like not a situation that actually happened, right? Like in this way. I mean, but maybe it's a rethinking of it.
Yeah,
Paul,
it's grainy because
I like the image, but it doesn't feel as powerful as the Justice is Blind image, or as like funny as the grandma kicking Trump's ass.
Like, I think that if this was really a competition where we were picking the best one, I think that if we had to keep only one of his images, it would probably be the the justice one, right?
The first one, yeah, the first one we showed, definitely.
This is
Agreed.
a really powerful image. Unbelievable. All right, guys, I really want to keep moving because we passed the 2 hours mark. The next one, it's Alexander van de Vatine. Alexander. I don't know if he's watching, but he's submitted 2 images, and I don't know if these 2 images are connected to one another, because you see,
I think they are sort of.
there is sort of like a breaking happening, but then there are 2 different moods, and there is a different scale also. So I'm not really sure. I wish that Alexander was actually watching this to help us reading this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's relatively clear. It's kind of like, you know, the destruction of the ideals of America, right? I mean, that the Statue of Liberty is fractured in some way.
Well, like the fractured second image, I'm trying to figure out where, like, is it that the statue was black and the white was the shell around it?
It almost looks like it's mixed.
Like
It's very difficult, yeah, to quite understand. I mean, what is clear is that the shining beacon is falling, which is clearly speaking of the problems that America is facing at the moment. But
Guys, I don't know if Alexander is watching this, but I would like him to leave a comment and explain us a little bit about this image. It will be interesting to know what was his intention. Let's move forward. This is an image that I really, really liked. And at first I did not understand it. Watching it again, looking at it again, I think I figured what it meant. Did you guys...
Yeah, this is actually what we were talking about just a minute ago. About, labeling police as automatically as like racist and things, because this is obviously a black policeman who is questioning maybe his what he has to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess
that's how I see it.
Yes. And there are so many like little things that you can...
Clark, can I ask you a question about this one?
Sure.
It's a conversation that comes up like a lot whenever, back when we were, initially going back into the Middle East to look for weapons of mass destruction and
Guys,
everything
I'll be
else.
back in a minute.
Yep.
Give me just 1 second.
Like, do we support our troops, right? Like, the idea of being in the military, as I understand it as a civilian, is that, like, you're not there to decide what you're doing. You're there to enact what you're being told to do, trusting those above you to be making the right decisions on where to go.
Right.
And then I feel like there's a comment in this kind of about that, which is to vilify the police, even the police that are standing with shields, not the ones that are acting violently. But if you're a police officer and you're told, get a shield and put on your riot gear and go to the square, you get to be in charge of whether or not you attack someone on a bike with a police baton, obviously. But, like, your job is not to not go.
Exactly, 100%. And but even with that said, Mike, I'm going to bring it back to that last footage. There were 3. I can't remember where this was. Was it Philadelphia or somewhere in the Northeast? There are 3 cops. One of them pushed a 70-year-old man down, and he cracked his skull open there, and he was bleeding.
Yeah.
If you ever looked at that footage, one of the officers actually tried to stop and check on him, and he got pulled away. So, yeah. I mean, even with that said, he obviously felt bad about what happened to him and wanted to check on him, but he got pulled away. So, yeah, he had to perform his duty, but at the same time, you can't necessarily just say, no, that's a dereliction of duty.
Yeah,
all right?
Agreed.
And in this particular picture, I wanted to point out this particular image, which I think is well done. If you look through the door, if you look on the wall, all right, what you're going to see is you're going to see a flag there. All right. And usually those flags are given out when someone has lost their life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he's making a statement there. Someone has lost their life, presumably either in the military or in the police force. The picture is next to the flag as if it was a memorial. So apparently this person is close to someone who may have given their life, in service. And now he's stuck with this task of going out and doing something, and he doesn't know, and he's having this internal conflict. I think it's a very good it's a very powerful image.
There's also a book on the bedside table that says all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, and that's actually from Orwell, Animal Farm. It's from this movie, or I guess it was an animated movie back in the day. It's also a really
Stunning.
crazy one, but I just noticed that on the wall. It's like he's been reading this. But yeah, I noticed also on the wall where you were talking about where the pictures are. There's like an army achievement something. He's also there's this picture of the guys like in theater somewhere, around a tank. But yeah, there's some history there with this person, whether that's the person or if that's someone else. The person was close to. This is a really great image. It's
I
a
have to
deep
say,
one.
Stefano, incredible work, really. Stefano Darko.
The thing I like as well about this is you feel sympathy for the officer in his riot gear, right? Which I think is to something that we've been saying for a while today, which is like, it's not, you can't look at everything as, all police are bad or all police are racist or whatever else. You can't just like vilify anyone as a group, because that's kind of part of the problem, a big part of the problem that we're in altogether right now.
Yeah.
Right. And like being able to see, even as tough as everything is, to be able to see not just both sides, but to see that like this is a systemic problem. It's not a bad apple problem, as I'm sure we've all seen talked about very eloquently, more eloquently than I can. But on top of that, like we can't even just look at like the police force as a whole when we're talking about the officers. We really need to think of like policing as a thing, and then the cops as individuals, peoples that, have their own feelings, beliefs, good or bad, and everything else, but they're individuals and humans as well.
Yeah.
And as a less deep aside on this image, there was some discussion one time in previous challenges about people reusing their ArcViz scenes and using making images. This is the right way to do it. You want to use the bedroom scene you made for the apartment, but when the story is good and when everything else is matching, like the pictures on the wall, like everything, that is like been repurposed properly. If it was repurposed, maybe he made it all, but we know who we're dealing with here, these ArcViz guys.
There is a person somewhere in the world that will say, "Oh my God, that's my bedroom." Guys, I'm gonna move forward. We still have a few images. This one is from David Guardado. Welcome back, David, to the challenge. We missed you, man. That's a beautiful image. Very simple, but very efficient in a way of communicating emotions, I feel.
That's a nice style. I mean, it's a nice way to frame it. It's reminiscent of this now I can't even think of it. The show, the TV show, the titles of the TV show. Oh my God, I can't think of the name of it.
It's not Seinfeld.
With Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, the crime show.
True Detective.
True Detective. That's reminiscent of those titles a little bit. I like that.
This double exposure sort of.
Exactly.
I mean, there is two things that I don't have an answer for, but I do have a question about. One is the choice that we can see the white girl holding up the peace sign's face, and we can't see the black protester's face. And and there seems to be like a significance to the black fist being above the peace sign that I don't know that I fully understand.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just wondering if there's significance there, and there's something about it when I see it, I assume that there is, and that I'm just like, when you hear a joke that you know you're not in on, that's the feeling that I get from that.
Mm.
Let me see how many images we have left. So it's
Be
three
three,
more
I
images.
think, after this one.
But they're actually 3 very good images.
I suggest we go ahead and do that, maybe because we probably want to talk about. You had some questions, Fabio. Maybe I don't know. We
Yes.
talk about a little bit afterwards. So
I don't know, Clark, do you have the time?
I have the time.
What about you, Drokis?
I'm here, baby.
All right. So, guys, this is from Niccolo Bovelli.
yeah, I'm also not quite sure about this one. I mean, like what it means exactly.
You know, I hope the Niccolo is watching.
You guys have a take?
I mean, I love how the character looks. I think the character looks cooler than the foreground as far as how it was executed. We have all these cops looking at a white statue with red eyes. It's fallen. So as far as like what the messaging is or what it means or significance, I like the image. Besides the fact that they are cops, I'm not sure what the relevance is of it.
I'm not sure if this is like a statue representing somebody that passed, and the cops are like mourning or something, because then there are candles and stuff.
I mean, I would guess that since it's about this recent thing that happened, that it's supposed to be represent Floyd had passed away, and he's flat on the ground on his face, and the police there. But I don't understand. Like the police, they look like they're. I guess maybe that the importance of Floyd is so big that he's so much bigger than the police. I don't know that it's much he's overshadowing the he's the focal point, right? But I'm just throwing things out here right now.
I really wish that Niccolo could actually share a couple of words about this work with us, so that we could have a better reading key. But anyway, let me move forward, guys, so that we can take a look. Okay, this is from Mario Roja. Mario's also been participating quite a few times in these challenges. It's a very simple yet very effective image. I think that, like when I made the challenge, I was hoping for messages like this, right? Where we symbolize unity, where we symbolize very basic things like love, because love is such a simple feeling. If you put your ego aside, if you put your misconceptions aside, and if you do it with the intention of like saying, love needs to prevail. And I don't know why sometimes we as humans spend so much time fighting, and people say that it's a question of like technology and social media, but the reality is that social media is just a vehicle. It just amplifies these things.
I mean, there's Jason brought it up before, and I think if you look like historically, like back to like the heart of the civil rights movement back in like the 60s, the message was love, and we all need to love one another regardless of skin color and everything else. And here 60 years later, clearly that wasn't enough, right? So like, while I agree we should love everyone, and we should, regardless of skin color, and we should show love even to the people we disagree with as a means to moving forward, as far as like actually fixing things and getting to the point where Martin Luther's speech of "I have a dream" isn't just a speech that we quote to feel good about ourselves, but is actually something that's come true. Like, just love alone doesn't seem like enough to me.
Yeah, of course, you need actions, you need like implementation, right? It's not enough to say I wanna lose weight. You also have to do what it takes to lose weight. And I speak as a person that, during this freaking lockdown, I've been eating like a
Guys, I think the problem is just a bit more complex. I think we could say we need love, but I think there's just more to it than that. A lot of these things are socio-economical issues that have nothing to do with love or race. At its base level, it's a little bit deeper. It's about the haves and the have-nots. Remember, this country is built off of capitalism.
Yeah.
It's built off of money. And, it's just a deeper conversation. And that's the conversation that we need to have.
And
not right now.
Let's dive into that right this moment and figure this thing out. But like that, it's such a good point, right? Like that, even if right now we all say, okay, we're not going to be racist and we're going to be more mindful and we're going to be more aware and everything else, that doesn't, change the fact that, over the past 300 years, white America has been able to accumulate and pass on wealth, right, in the form of homes and trusts and like what you pass down to your kids and everything else that has allowed them to get further and further ahead. That even if we were just to say like right now, let's just like even the entire playing field, that still doesn't get rid of the fact that by and large, when you look at socioeconomic like distributions as far as wealth goes, right, like the black population in America is still largely on the bottom and the white population is still largely on the top, right? That like fixing racism right now also means dealing with the fact that we have 200 years of how this country's been run and how this country's been built that are backing up systemic, what I think we can broadly lump in as systemic racism.
It is. And that's the conversation, The people with the money and the power don't want to lose money and the power. And understandably, who wants to lose?
Yeah, of course.
But what we have to get it through is you're not losing. You still have everything. You still own everything. You still are kings of the hill. But just allowing other people to at least have a shot. And yeah, we are free to have a shot, but are we really?
But we don't all have the same shot.
That's
exactly.
That's then the next question, because a lot of people, and I really want to start asking you all these questions, but a lot of people say that you guys.
How about we look at? Look at the last image and then do this? What you're going to say right now?
Yes.
Yeah, certainly.
Fabio, don't forget what you're going to say.
This is from Yassine Latiri. It's the last image for tonight. And, okay. Yes, it's the last image. Who wants to go first?
Nobody.
Wow.
I don't know if Yasin is actually watching this. I would appreciate maybe if he or she, I don't know if that's a male or female name, left a comment just to let us know what the intention was. I think that, the hand is for the symbol for, the Black Lives
Yeah,
Matter.
definitely.
The other statues, I don't know if those are... I don't know if it's the... No, that doesn't look like the Statue of Liberty or anything. And also, I realize, Mike, shouldn't you be doing your show?
Yeah, I left a message for people that I'll be there when I can be there.
Okay, guys, listen.
Let's have a discussion a little bit. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
this one's
Sorry.
Yeah, this one's I think I like the image. I think it's well executed, and I quite like the color of it. But it kind of falls into one of those. I get it, the Black Fist. We get the significance of it, but it doesn't go beyond that. Which isn't to say that it's a bad thing. I think anything that's raising awareness is a good thing at the moment. But as far as like what more is it saying, I'm not sure what the striated lines are in the background, whatever that piece of architecture is, and I'm not sure. Maybe I'm missing who that statue is. I'm not sure who that's supposed to be, if it's supposed to be specific. So it could just be me not getting it. But I like the image, and I just think that it could probably go a step further in explaining what it's trying to say.
I agree. I'm just having a hard time understanding anything other than the meaning of the whole image aside from the fist. I get the fist, just not so much the other two statues or what's happening with this. And then, but for me, in terms of the technical portion, just like the other image that was all red or pinkish, I would like to see it just maybe. I'm not sure if it's contrast or I'm not sure exactly what it is, but the monotoneness of the colors kind of throwing me off just a little. It's like it's on Mars.
It does feel like it's on Mars.
If it wasn't slightly a little bit more golden, then Jason would have loved it.
Not enough black.
Guys,
Just kidding. Black and gold, baby.
Let me close this image, and eventually, just by looking at the thumbnails, let me just, for the pleasure of the artists watching from home, if you were to pick a winner, just for the sake of it, which one would it be?
So we're not judging, but now we are judging?
No, we're not. We're still not judging, but if you were to pick a winner.
I was planning to do this anyway as well, just for fun.
I would say I think it was Poe, the one with the little girl in Lady Liberty, and she's like handing her the eyepiece.
I would have said the same.
So for me, it's between that one and the one from Dorca. I really like that one from Dorca as well because it's like, it's like as if, like we were talking about, it's a sort of this idealistic looking image. If you look at it from a distance, it's almost like, oh, this is like a image of a vacation house or paradise or something like that. And then you look at it and it's actually someone struggling under the water with the oblivious person on the top of the water, like not knowing what's going on. I think this one is super powerful as well, with just a few, like with not having to use too many props or anything. It's super simple. And I think between Pole and between Dorca, those two for me were the two best ones.
Mr.
Also,
Golden?
in terms of the technical,
Jason, I think we agree on for the first time, maybe.
You guys should have babies.
Oh.
Yeah, I got that changed real quick.
I think we'll have to adopt.
And I also really like the first one that we looked at still with the lone saxophone player.
Yeah, it's a very
Um,
powerful image.
Oh yeah.
there's something that like I think one of the things I didn't say then that I think resonated with me with that one is that, you know, I very happily and proudly say that I'm not a racist person. And then as a result of that, like I get to go about my life as normal without worrying about any of these problems or being affected by if I get a speeding ticket, is that going to result in my death potentially, or worse? And there's something about like the everydayness of this image that's like just not being racist isn't right now is not enough to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's this feeling of like, oh, we'll just go back to normal and my life won't change, and that's, you know, all fine and good is symptomatic of systemic racism and my own white privilege. And, you know, like it's not just obviously police brutality, huge problem, like racial inequality when it comes to loans and voting and, you know, gerrymandering and all those things, huge problems. But I think that there's also just like the everyday casual racism, or like the part that's learned from growing up in America of where whites belong and where blacks belong, even though we're, you know, not segregated. There's so much just kind of in the ether that's like very subtly reinforcing all of these kind of racist ideas that the everyday moments still matter a lot as well. And being more both like aware and mindful of what our actions are doing or not doing to help that problem, not just I'm not racist, right?
Guys, can I ask you a question now that I have 3 American people in front of me? Is there a race issue in the United States? And if the answer is yes, how does this manifest? For those who think that, you know, this is just a big made up lie.
So
I mean-
I'm gonna answer this question with a question. Now, I know you probably shouldn't do that, but do you think we'd be having this conversation if there wasn't a race issue? So that's my answer to anyone who wants to know if there's a race issue. When anything that we talk about devolves into race, there's an issue. That simple. So the answer is yes.
Overwhelmingly, yes.
I would also say yes. I mean, I'm not just because of what's happened now. You know, I mean, it's I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it the result of, you know, growing up in the South and then moving to North Central Arkansas, where there were only white people, and you still had the KKK in North Central Arkansas. And honestly, whenever there were cases where, you know, a black family would move into somewhere into the area or whatever, they would normally leave. They would not stay there, and there's a reason for that. That's because they were harassed. They were made to feel unwelcome, you know, at any cost. And people who would move into that area, they would leave. And that's just sad. And this is when I was growing up, you know. It's not that long ago. And I guarantee you it's still the same there now as it was back then. You know, that's
Clark,
not changed.
Then one more question. Do you think that minorities, and especially African Americans, have the same opportunities as white people in America?
I would say the opportunity is there. What's different is the ability to make those opportunities come to life. All right. So yeah, I have the opportunity to get a job. I have the opportunity to buy a house. I have the opportunity to do anything that I want. With that said, it's just harder for me.
How?
There are gatekeepers. How? All right. So, here's the thing. I work at an architecture firm. I started off visualizing. We're going back to, I don't know, 1999 is when I first started with this. But you notice I don't freelance. I don't own a visualization firm or anything like that, because as things go, I can talk to people on the phone. I can talk to people on the internet. But once we get in front of a camera or face to face, I don't get the job, no matter how good I am, But that's just how it is. So yeah, I have the opportunity. I can do it, but I don't get the job at the end. I can work fast. I can produce awesome work, but someone else will probably get the job. Which, I'm not upset about that, or I'm certainly not going to complain about it, because I've been able to thrive and grow in this career field that I have. But that's a thing, Patrick asked me one day, how come my picture isn't on Facebook? That's the reason why. If you really want to know, that's the reason why. Because I can get more business if my picture's not on Facebook.
Now, one might
So
say...
you think...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No.
Now, one might say, okay, but this is maybe just your own issue. Other people do get the job. Have you seen that kind of discrimination also on other people that you know?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do want to point out, I don't see a lot of people of color in this industry. I'm sure they're there. I made a comment the other day, I've not seen any other person of color. So, everywhere I go, I'm kind of like the odd man. I stand out like a sore thumb. But that's okay.
I mean, Stephen Levitt in Freakonomics did like a huge study on names, right? Like if you send out an application, and I know that in Europe it's very common for applications for jobs to have an actual picture. In America, it's not allowed, I don't think, to request
that's right.
one. As a means of being, we're not racist, so we don't allow pictures that would divulge race. But if your name is a black-sounding name, right? It's Tyrone as opposed to James. Your likelihood of getting a callback or interview or that job is remarkably in the single-digit percentile of someone with a white-sounding name.
God, that's so true.
And there are studies, multiple studies behind it, right? Which is, you have the same shot to get the job, but if you sound black or look black, you are going to be judged unfairly for that. Which is Clark, to ask your question, does that mean you have the same opportunity, right?
Right. So I have the opportunity, but the opportunity is not the problem. The gatekeeper is the problem. So yeah, I have the opportunity, but if the gatekeeper deems me as being inferior because of the color of my skin, then where does that leave you? So
that's
technically the opportunity is there. It's just
with a pretty big asterisk next to it, though.
Exactly. It's a gray area. It's not black or white. It's a gray area, and all of these are gray areas. There's no definitive. All right. Like I said, I think I've been extremely, I'm not going to say lucky, because I worked really hard to be where I am. And I've had to prove myself over and over again, probably more so than my white counterparts. But that's, and that's, a sad part of the country. But I can say that I am where I am in my career and in my life because of the work that I produce. It's, it's not because of the color of my skin, thank God. I work really hard for what I have. And my employers, they see it, and they value it, and they stand behind me 100%. So I did have an opportunity, and I've taken full advantage of that opportunity. So yes, the opportunity is there. All right. And just so happened, I have made it to a place where the gatekeepers don't see race. They don't hold back, and they're committed to having an inclusive and diverse workplace. So there you go. But on the other hand, I remember when I graduated, I would get so much interest in my resume, so much interest in my portfolio. And then when I would, and this is back in 2003, when I would interview, the interview would be over the second I got there. I don't know how many architecture firms I was turned away at the door, where I've had phone conversations with people, set up the interview, 2 or 3 interviews on the phone. I come in for an in-person interview, and all of a sudden, we don't hire people with your degree, or, the principal's out. He's not going to, be able to have this conversation. And then that was it. It took me a very long time to actually land a position whenever I graduated, and I'm going to call the city out, Wilmington, North Carolina.
I was going to ask you if you were in North Carolina at that time, because that's where you said you had grown up and stuff. Where'd you go to school?
All right, so school, that's another one. When I got out of the military, I enrolled into Cape Fear Community College. I used my GI Bill to go to college, and the goal was to go to Cape Fear for 2 years and then transfer to University of North Carolina, Charlotte. All right, and what happens is I graduate, I work with all these people, I apply for Charlotte, and I worked with the VA people at both colleges. Whenever I graduated and went to move to Charlotte, UNCC denied all of my credits, denied every one of them, would not accept one credit.
Really?
And wanted me to start over, but unfortunately, I'd already used my GI Bill. Yeah, so I mean, it's those sorts of things. That's where it's rough, and it's funny because I had a friend who graduated maybe a year after I did from Cape Fear, and he was able to take his degree and continue on, get his master's to multiple different universities. So it hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still have the opportunity. I just would say I needed to work harder at making it happen. I didn't give up or anything, but at that point I wasn't sure what to do. Where do you go at that point? You just spent 3.5 years getting an associate's in architecture, and then the architecture school won't accept any of your credits that they recommended that you take.
Clark,
Yeah.
Is it true that minorities and especially African American people get to study for free thanks to affirmative action?
No, that's a lie. Simply, no, it's a lie. That doesn't happen. No.
I have a bunch of these questions that, we could go on for a couple of hours.
But I would also say, from my understanding of those laws and what they were trying to achieve, that was obviously not what they're trying to achieve. This is like fear mongering from people who want to make you afraid that somebody who doesn't deserve something is going to get something that you deserved. This is like total populism in general. The idea was not to give things to people just based on their skin color. It's the idea is to help support and raise up people who wouldn't have the same opportunities that someone else would have. don't think it had anything to do with quality or what I mean is that you don't look at like trying to find people who are, you know, going to fit into those positions that they were going to be put in. At least that's how I always saw it. I mean,
so the whole point of affirmative action was, let's say we're going to go back in time here. You had two people applying for position. One was black, one was white. They may have been similarly qualified. However, the white person was always chosen over the black person. Even if the black person was more qualified, the white person was always chosen. So the whole point of affirmative action was to level the playing field so the black person who was equally qualified would have a equal shot. You know, it's never been, I'm going to give an unqualified black person a job just because they're black. It was to prevent the systematic, you know, shutout of black people.
And do you think that nowadays affirmative action is giving more help to minorities, especially black people and Asians, other than white people?
No, because even still, even with affirmative action, there's just this. White people already have this abundance of. I'm trying to use the right words here. They have this abundance of opportunity. Opportunity is not the right word.
Access, maybe.
Advantage.
Yes, advantage. They have that advantage. It's there. It's ingrained in the culture. It's ingrained in everything. And when you look at resumes or whatever, and Tyrone Jenkins over here has a master's degree and does this, that, and the third, but Richard, whoever here, sounds like a good,
Richard Smith.
Richard
Johnson.
Smith.
Richard
Like
White.
a real knockout guy. Richard Johnson. Let's get Richard in here.
And he seems promising. Well, but that's like the almost like the one of like the super like sick things that you're seeing in the argument against affirmative action is that the advantages of being white versus black when it comes to like jobs or college admissions or any type of those candidacies is that affirmative action, whether it's in the form of a quota or just like non-discriminatory laws, it comes off or it's read as by the detractors of that as we're giving an unfair advantage to black folks because we're codifying that in that situation, we're going to give the job to the black person as opposed to the white person if there's nothing else separating them, right? Is how it gets interpreted and then preached against as far as saying like I'm being discriminated against as a white male. And I think it's because all of the like white privilege stuff, that's not codified. Or it kind of is, but it's not like in like a line, right? And so we see that as unfair, but we don't see it as unfair that it's easier for me to get go through an interview than it is for you, Clark, right? And so there's like just this I've said this a bunch of times today, but I'm just going to continue saying it. This like willful ignorance to anyone who believes that being white and black doesn't make a difference in America, right? When it comes to jobs and opportunities.
Well, I want to add something to this, which I think shows you exactly where the lines are drawn in this kind of argument. Think about farmers or specific industries in the United States. The government and people in general have no problem with the government giving subsidies to certain industries or farmers, etc. And why do they do that, the government? They do that to level the field for American business or whatever to compete with businesses outside of the United States or whatever. This whole trade shit with China that Trump's doing and all this like big blah, blah, blah. That's what this is about, right? So that's fine to do it when it comes to money, but it's not fine to do it when it comes to like helping other people have like proper access to the same things, you know, that other people have. But that's what trade is. That's what all these subsidies are. So in America, it's like we get back to this idea about capitalism. That's the most important thing. This is the myth of America, right? That's what everything is based on, is the money, right? That's it. And if you can make money making people afraid of things, then why not? I mean, that's like, if that's the way to do it, then it works. But I think this just shows you down deep where the real issue is standing.
Sorry, guys. Clark, can I ask you one more question? And then, you know, I really want to cut it because we've been talking for almost 3 hours now. All the videos of police brutality against minorities that we see coming to the other side of the pond, is this just the mean left that is trying to push their propaganda, showing how oppressive the United States and the police can be towards minorities? Is there that type of violence on white people? What do you guys feel? I want to hear it from you, Clark, but also from Drogis and James.
All right. So I had a conversation with one of my old college roommates, who is he's white, and he says to me, "Hey, you remember when we were in college and you used to ask me to ride to the store with you so you wouldn't get pulled over?" And I said, "Of course I do." He's like, "I get it now." So, so there you go. That's the difference. He doesn't get pulled over for driving to the store at night. He doesn't get searched or anything. I don't think it's some left thing that left-right garbage. I don't think it's something that, is being shown just to sway opinion. It's being shown so people can understand. I've been pulled over for just walking. I went to a bar to have a drink. I got pulled over for walking. Yeah, why are you walking? I was at the bar. I was drunk. I didn't want to drive. So, and my white friends didn't have that happen to them. They still, and sometimes, some of them tell me it's just me and I'm overreacting, and some of them get it now. But I'd love to hear someone else's thought on it.
I actually forgot to ask people, to comment and leave me a comment in case they wanted to debate this. And so, I'm sorry because it happens in the comments on Facebook, and I think it's unfortunate that now that, we have you here, we cannot have a conversation about it. But anyway, sorry, Mike, I interrupted you.
I've never worried about being singled out or treated unfairly by a police officer. I'm not even, let alone not have it happen. I've not had to worry about it either.
Yeah, I can say the same thing.
Right.
But
so
I also wanted to say that, of course, people with their political views are going to utilize things to get their point across whenever they see an opportunity. But I think that this has crossed any kind of political issue, in my opinion. I mean, okay, so people are using certain things to show how bad things are or to push an agenda, but this is happening with everything. It's happening with, do you like Coke or do you like Pepsi? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's like the whole idea of how like the American society is working is based on marketing and advertising, right? So in a way, I think it's almost like it doesn't really matter. You have to kind of ignore those things because what we're talking about is basic human rights. We're not talking about politics here,
Well, I mean, there's one thing that is like kind of like even Fabio, you asking the question, like the method is trying to, or the current GOP and like the president particularly is trying to make this a political issue, right? That and trying to say that all of this stuff is just the liberal Democrats and the liberal media and fake news and all of this stuff, and it's everything's actually great, right? Like this is all of them fear. The GOP is somehow accusing the DNC of fear mongering, which I think is wow. But
Yeah.
they're repeating the same either lies or misleading statements or falsities over and over and over again. And like the human brain, like if we hear the same thing enough, we believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Like the human brain is not good at saying false or true. It's really good at saying, well, I heard this thing 12 times and this thing 3 times, so this thing's probably the one to believe. And so they're just echoing these ideas out loud, publicly, all over the place, tweets, Facebook ads, everywhere you can find it, to the point where a lot of folks, both in America but also globally, are like, well, what do we believe? Is it the lying Democrats or is it the lying Republicans? I don't know. Like, it's confusing the entire conversation about things that are we can look at statistically. If you look at any of the statistics involving like race and economic advantage or position inside of America, you can't argue that race isn't a problem. You can't argue that police brutality is not A, a problem, and B, vastly, and disproportionately aimed at Black and brown communities and not white. Like there's just no facts to stand on to any other opinion. But you can just repeat lies and blame the liberal Democrats, and there's a decent amount of people that's enough.
Then let me just say one last thing, and then I stop bothering you because I think that it's been long enough. Yes, but the majority of criminals are Black.
Oh, that's easy. It's easy because it is proportionately. First of all, the majority of criminals are not Black. The majority of people in jail are Black because they are disproportionately arrested and charged and subsequently convicted of things that they probably should not be convicted of. All right. That's just, as a former marketing analyst, that's just a way of tweaking numbers to push an agenda that you want to push. All right. How can all of these, I mean, the African Americans make up like maybe 12% of America? 12%? Really? I mean, we can't commit all that crime.
But isn't it like 60% of the incarcerated population?
I thought it was higher than that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is.
Exactly. And keep in mind, these places are publicly are these prisons, all right, are basically just money pits. They're built to house people to make money. And
that's right.
And
America, baby.
And these legislators should be ashamed of themselves for allowing their pockets to be lined so they can basically have legalized slavery. That's all it is. I mean,
I think I agree with you, Clark, and I think that that's actually something that has to be looked at as well. Which, I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time as well, but here we're getting to this boiling point again. Like, what are the problems that we're facing? And this is another one of those privately run or private prisons. People who can have businesses who are making money on running prisons. That's bullshit. Like, that should never have happened. It should never have been allowed from the beginning. It's probably unconstitutional even. I mean, when you think about it. In the justice system. But I think to add on to what you were saying, I think the other problem why this idea that Black people are, the majority of the criminals, you also got to think about the socioeconomic aspects of that. And, like a lot of people who've been arrested, they get assigned a public defender who probably doesn't give a shit or doesn't do his job properly or doesn't know how to do his job properly. And they can't afford perhaps to get the proper representation, which the majority of white people or people in a better economic situation could afford. That has a big part to do with it too, I'm sure.
Certainly. I mean, I was going to say a lot of people of color are in prison because they're poor, period.
Yeah.
They can't afford to hire that representation. And these prosecutors know that. And that's the sad part.
But it's not just socioeconomic. That's obviously a huge part of the issue, and you can get people scared. You can say, well, you can either try your luck in trial and go to jail, potentially go to jail for 10 years, or you can accept this plea bargain and go to jail for 2. And so they take the 2, regardless of whether they're innocent or not, just because 10's not worth the risk. But you look at Brock Turner, right? The white Stanford guy who raped the unconscious girl behind a dumpster.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was black. That guy went to jail for 30 days, right?
If he was black, he probably would have gotten killed.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he didn't, he would be in jail for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
Regardless, I think, of his representation.
Guys, I want to thank you, and sorry for interrupting you. We've been going on for almost 3 hours. Believe it or not, this will be the longest show on the history of YouTube shows. Clark, it was a privilege to have you on the show. Thanks a lot for educating us. I think that people need to come together and they have to have a conversation. And I know that in the process of having a conversation, people like me will make mistakes. We will do things or we will say things that are not correct. But I'd rather be on the side of those who push the conversation and make some mistakes than to be on the side of those that do not talk because they're afraid of making the mistake. And so I have to say that I'm really thankful that you took up the invitation from Mike. Mike, thanks a lot for listening to me when I needed somebody that needed to listen to me. Jason, thanks a lot also for being here, my sidekick in all of these adventures. We're gonna get in trouble one day. Big trouble. But yeah, guys, tomorrow there will be another competition that I'm going to announce later before I give the word to the judges, which today did not judge. And so, I'll bring back the fun, but that doesn't mean that the issue is buried with this competition. We're gonna keep talking about these issues. They're very important, and I think that us as artists have the obligation almost to keep working and create art that can inspire. I just want to say one more thing. When the Nazis were defeated in Europe, a lot of the work was done by visual artists that were creating subliminal messages that helped all those who were revolting and were fighting the Nazis to understand what the situation was. Because that's what art can do. And so we have this ability to make people understand, to make people see things that otherwise would not be visible. We're doing it for a good cause, which is equality. It's nothing more than that, We just don't want people to be beaten up until they die. It's as simple as that. If you're against that, then you should really question your humanity. Judges, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, Fabio.
Thank you, Fabio.
Thanks, Clark and Mike.
Fabio. Thank you, Clark. And thank you to everybody that's been listening to us for 3 hours, and also for all of the artists that submitted work for us to talk about.
Yes, definitely.
Certainly. And I'd like to say one thing before we go, if I can, all right? Thank you for having the conversation. And despite what you may think, what people tell you, it's okay to say things wrong. All right? It's okay. Just keep having the conversation. Thanks.
Guys, I'm going to stop the stream. Don't go anywhere so that I can say thank you one more time. Let me see if there are some comments. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Pirate Pixel, Francesco, Ale, everyone who's been listening to us jumbo mumble for it's 3 hours now. Oh my God. All right. Good night, everybody. I'm going to stop the stream. You judges don't go anywhere.